Hungry Trilobyte podcast would like to start by acknowledging these fine conventions. SoonerCon is Central Oklahoma's longest-running pop culture convention. The next event is scheduled for June 24th through 26, 2002 in Norman, Oklahoma. However, they need your help to put on the next event. Please visit SoonerCon.com to find out how you can help make SoonerCon 30 a reality. The Hellmouth Convention. The Hellmouth Convention is a celebration of all pop culture, but specifically things like Buffy, Angel, Firefly, and Dr. Horrible. It is held in Los Angeles, California, and the next event is scheduled for June 3rd through 5th, 2022. Proceeds benefit the Los Angeles LGBT Center as well as the Ron Glass Memorial Scholarship Fund. For more information, go to thehellmouth.org. On tap today, we have Reece Brown. How are you doing today, good sir?
I'm doing great. Doing great. How about yourself, man?
I am doing great. I was really glad to make your acquaintance earlier this week because we almost had the same reaction when we looked at each other's work. I talked to you about the show and you said, wow, that sounds awesome. I want to get a better look at that. And then I looked over what you're doing this upcoming year and I'm like, that sounds amazing because I'm looking at this film you're on called Social Credit. And I am a sucker for parallel reality stories. That is one of those things that anything that has that concept, I love to get my hands on it. So I'm like, I really want to talk to this guy.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And again, thank you for having me on your show. This is awesome. I really have to say that was probably it was the most bizarre, but almost the most surreal most surreal project I've ever worked on before. Aaron, there were just things and there were parts about the story that it made me feel like this could potentially be our reality. It could potentially be what could happen to us, our country. I mean, what's honestly what's so bizarre, what's so crazy about it is that that's actually what's going on in parts of the world right now. It's just hasn't completely affected Western civilization yet, and it kind of tapers into the core values and to the infrastructure of what our country is truly founded on, and I think that's what really compelled me to be a part of the story. I really didn't think that even my character, what I was going to be portraying, was going to be the helm of the film, but after I read it and I sat down and spoke with the director, and I just felt like this is something that I had to be a part of. Like, I love to tell stories and I love to peel back the layers of what it means to truly break down the human condition and to just be exploitative and I guess really just get more involved with this thing called life. You know, every single day is a completely different thing. You know, you just kind of never knew what you're gonna get. But yeah.
And yeah, that's. Go ahead.
No, may I ask you, like, what was it about the film that really intrigued you, per se?
When I read the concept behind it, and I only found out about it 2 days ago, so I haven't had a chance to see it yet, obviously. But like I said, I love alternate history, alternate reality stories, and the concept of taking a Eastern world caste system and making it the literal government in the United States and those types of Western nations. And because the United States historically rejected any sort of formal class system. So what if we turned that on its head and said, no, not only are we not going to reject it, we're going to codify it into law. And what would that mean for people? There's really only one way to tell that story, and that is to actually make the movie you guys made.
Right.
I'm like, we talk about fiction and we talk about taking a character, like you could play a rich person, a poor person, a gay person, a straight person, an American, a Mexican. It doesn't matter. You could put yourself in another character. But to say, we're going to put you in another reality, that's taking it 3 steps to the side. And I find that fascinating.
Wow. You know, it's even crazy that you say that because I really didn't even look at it from that perspective at first. I think for me, I was really more stuck and drawn into the character and just going through the motions of the different transitions that he was going through in his life. And it's really a story of suffering and loss. And the fact that, I felt like my character was just the masses, just singularly at one pivot point in life. And he is just in a position where he just loses everything. And it's kind of like, well, what do you do? How do you combat this? How do you move on? How do you progress? How do you move forward? And to really look at the story in itself, and that being the catalyst from what's being driven behind the scenes, it was quite scary, to be honest with you, because before I even read the last page of the script, I thought that my character was gonna I thought he was gonna commit suicide, just from the immense and the pressure and everything that was going on. So you know, Aaron, I gotta say that, you know, acting has really opened up my eyes to so much more in life, that it's not just, about, the glitz and the glamour, or, being famous or making a lot of money, which of course, none of those things are exactly negative, but it gives you the innate ability to look at life from a different perspective, and to put yourself in other people's shoes, and to really have a more in-depth understanding, and to feel the tapestry that we really are all connected in some bizarre and somewhat very, very, very intricate way. And working on this short film kind of brought me a little bit closer to my own personal fears, my own realizations about my shortcomings as a person, and my failures, and the mistakes that I've made. And it's really helped me to open my eyes to just be more sincere, to be more in depth, and to just be more me. And yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that tangent.
No, I'm
But
really glad you did, because I don't know if you happen to have caught it, but we just released an episode with Adil Hussain, who's an Indian actor, and he has said something very, very similar to what you just said, is that we use the art to connect to each other, to find ways to find the commonalities that might not be easy to see without the bond of art between us. So I'm really
right,
glad you actually picked up on that thread there. And it
right.
just shows that you and he are not the only people thinking along those lines. That's when you think about it, that's really why we're having the experience.
Mhm.
Let me ask you this, just for the sake of argument here. Can you give me a couple of your favorite movies? It doesn't have to be the top billing, but what movies do you just feel speak to you?
Oh man, there's so many. I definitely have to say Fight Club would definitely be one of them. The second one, I would probably say The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. And the third one, oh, that's tricky. I mean, there's so many. There's so many. Um,
I'm seeing you wearing a Captain America shirt there, so I'm wondering if that's possibly one I want to throw out
oh,
too.
oh, that's like a whole different. That's a whole different thing. Because I love Marvel. I love superheroes. I'm a really big nerd when it comes to that. I'd probably say the third one. I have to say, as far as comfort's concerned, I would say Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise.
I could see that there's some heavy hitters you're throwing in there, and I'm a huge Fight Club fan too. I think that movie it's one of those things that speaks to our. It's supposed to be a guy movie. I know that's really the perspective is written from, but I think a lot of people in our generation can just look at that and say they were on to something here. There's something about that these guys might not be going about it the right way, but they're voicing a frustration we all feel. We all connect to
Right,
that.
right. It's crazy because I've been taking acting courses now, um, through Corlin Productions and Spirit Square in Charlotte for about 5 years. And the way it works is, you'll go into class, and uh Miss Linda, she'll basically just break you down in the sense of helping you figure out what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. And she'll exploit both of those and help bring them all together to help bring out the artist in you. We'll do everything from doing diction courses to help you speak with, enunciation, and helping you to project your voice while being on stage to render a better stage presence. And this transcends to on stage and in front of the camera as well. But I worked on a project and it was Fight Club, and I did the speech that Tyler Durden delivers on Modern Living. And I got to tell you, from working just on that piece and having read the script twice, and I wanted to continue to do more research, so I went and bought the book in itself, and I read the book, which was brilliant. It was a little bit different than the script, but for obvious reasons. But and I got to tell you, it pulled me into directions of doing research on people that suffered from schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, people that it was weird too. I ended up reading a story. It was about a man that had he lost his wife, he had lost his oldest and his youngest son, and he just kind of went into a downward spiral. And it wasn't until he almost had a near-death experience that he decided that he needed to transform and to change his life. But all of this took place because he went through a phase of suffering in his life, which to me, I think that was one of the most prominent issues in Fight Club in itself, was the fact that, you know, this life is not perfect, and there are going to be things that happens to us that is outside of our control, whether they are good things or whether they are bad things, and that loss is inevitable. And I think that for the narrator, Jack, to me, Fight Club was just really more just a coming of age story about a man accepting his own existence and the full weight of what it means to truly be alive. And that the things that we think that truly matters most to us, that are usually the things that we strive to obtain, are really the things that inevitably sometimes end up separating us, not from other people, but really separating us from ourselves. And it was just incredible to work on that project. It took me literally a year just to get that monologue down, because of just the full weight of everything, and the words that were coming out of his mouth, and just how inspirational it was, but also too how in depth and how real it was. You know, it's life, and it really is ending 1 minute at a time. You know, so it's almost like, you know, what do we do with these precious moments and these brief minutes that we have? You know, I think that's something that has really inspired me and pushed me to become not just a good actor, but the best person and the best version of myself that I could possibly be. And hopefully this is something that I can help you with and help other people with, and bring out those liberties in all of us, you know, because I think at the end of the day, we all want our lives to matter and to mean something. You know, I think the shadows of death and immortality is something that it hits you at your core. And I don't really think that anybody wants to be erased. Everybody wants to be remembered for not necessarily being great, but being remembered for being who they are. And I think that's what Fight Club really taught me, what I really learned from it.
That I love that. And I love your choice of words there, because you called it a coming of age story. And most of the time when we talk about a coming of age story, we're talking about a story of somebody in their mid-teens who is learning how to fall in love for the first time, or move off of their parents' house, or how to stand up for themselves for the first time in their lives. And we tend to not see ourselves in those characters anymore once we hit our 20s, or we consider ourselves an adult. But you're talking about a coming of age story for somebody who's been on their own, has been hurt, has had loss, has suffered after many years as an adult, and still doesn't even know why they're there. And that's something that I can relate to, for sure. A lot of the people I know could relate to, and you can relate to, obviously, because you just went through that process. And you're right, we do want to remember, we want to be remembered, we want to have an impact. And that's actually part of the reason I'm having this show here, is that when somebody has an experience like you're describing, like I'm feeling, and we realize that the movie about the guys fighting in the basement has an impact on our lives, and it's talking about something that's very real to us, I want a way to capture that for people. So yeah, I really think that that's a great way to look at it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Aaron, it's crazy. I feel like I have days where, even myself, I have days where more oftentimes than not, I'd say out of a good 100% majority of my days, it's more like 70-30. Most of my days are really, really good, even kill. But then, I also have the days where, sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like, the things that I'm pursuing are things that are insurmountable. It's never gonna happen. I have days where I feel like I'm losing everything. I have days where I feel like I don't even know who I am. But I think one thing that's really helped me to channel these thoughts and these emotions is to just be alive. And I used to have a bad habit of, when I would feel a certain way about a subject, whether it came from confrontation or, getting stuck in the past, or, dealing with mixed feelings towards other people, relationships, even the relationship that I have with myself, I would suppress those feelings, and not so much of really bottling them up, but I would try to fight them. And then, because I'm 32 now, and I feel like I've gotten to an age and a point in my life where I allow myself to feel what I need to feel. That if I'm angry, I allow myself to be angry. If I feel, sad or depressed, I allow myself to feel these things for whatever reasons. And I think it's something that uh people should really do a lot more in of itself, of just feeling, because that's the one triggering point for Jack that, to me, in Fight Club, is what really started this whole anomaly of a series of crazy events. And it was because he was aware of the fact that he didn't feel anything. And I absolutely think it scared him. It's like, how do you honestly have, it can feel feelings but yet feel nothing? It's crazy. And it was really all inside of his head. And I feel like I've been that person at so many points and so many times in my life. It's crazy because when you watch the movie, you have the narrator, you have Jack, and then you have the alter ego, which of course is Tyler Durden, Brad Pitt's character. And he literally emulates everything that every single man on this planet wishes they could be, which is the best version of themselves every single day of their lives. And unfortunately, that's just not true. That's just not the reality that any of us live in, and that's not the world that we exist in. And I think it is that part of yourself that you don't like. I really think that's the part of yourself that you need the most, that's going to be there with you the most, because I'm a firm believer the relationship that you have with yourself is probably the best relationship you'll ever have in your life if you treat it that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I say absolutely, like I'm totally on board and I totally know what you're saying, but no, at the same time, it's like you're giving me a lot of insight that I hadn't considered before. So I don't want to act like a smart ass and things like that. No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
no,
That's
no, 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 no. Please, please.
wow, it makes a lot of sense. And put in the context of the movie, it's like you're having to deal with somebody who you on the surface might not like, and you have to realize that's you, whether that's something that's very visible to you or something you have to struggle to come to terms with. And it's you're stuck with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think too, excuse me, I think too that, the old saying, you are what you eat, or, you are who you associate yourself with. And, you're the common denominator of the 5 people that you spend the most of your time with in life. I definitely have to say that is very true. It's very, very true. Um, I do believe that the things that you spend a lot of your time doing in life, not even so much of just your actions or the people that you are associated with, but I think a lot of the times too, your thoughts. And I feel like in order, depending upon what it is that you want to do and the direction that you want to go in life, it really just brings me back to the centerfold of just know thyself, know who you are. And it's not to say that you need to know everything all at once, but just to know you, and to trust yourself, and to have a good relationship with who you are. Because I'm a firm believer that, if you don't love and you don't respect yourself, you're not going to get that from anything or from anybody else. And that's just the bottom line, to be honest with you. And I think that's something, if we're going to triangulate that back into Fight Club, I think towards the very end of that film, that's what Jack started to do. But it's funny, it's crazy, right? You go through life, you hit these pivot points, and you go through these valley points. But it's like as soon as you get past it, from having to go through that, you finally get into this place where it's like, oh my God, that really wasn't that bad. It's like, look at everything that I went through, look at everything I had to go through to get to. And it's just it's amazing. It's almost as if, negativity, evil, that these things are all a necessity, that these are all things that are part of the greater good, in a sense. I know it sounds weird, but I just remember watching that movie when I was 10 years old, and I'm thinking, okay, this is gonna be like, like some Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, like an awesome action flick. And I gotta tell you, that movie literally blew the brains out of my mind at 10 years old, because I was like, dude, this is not what the hell I thought it was.
Mhm.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't. And from there, I was just like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like, I just started looking at things so much differently after that. It was crazy. What about you? What are your favorite movies?
Well, I'll tell you what, one of them, I mean, I'll throw out Ghostbusters because Ghostbusters is one of those movies that I find the writing is brilliant, the delivery is brilliant, the concept is brilliant. Everything just kind of clicks right in that
Yeah.
center there. But when I want to talk about a movie that really hit me in the way that Fight Club seems to have hit you, I'm going to go with Big Fish.
Big Fish.
Directed by Tim Burton. I think it was released in 2004, 2006, somewhere in there.
Hmm.
You know the
I know
movie?
exactly. I know
Okay.
exactly what you're talking about, but I have not had the pleasure of seeing that one yet. But I'm a huge Tim Burton fan.
Okay, that might be a problem because I like Tim Burton well enough, but I'm not I'm not a rallying Tim Burton fan. It's probably the least Tim Burton movie there is. There's only
Yeah.
going to be a couple moments where you're like, okay, there he is right there. It's the story of a guy who is dealing with the fact that he doesn't really know his father. And he spent a lot of time with his father as a child. His father was very good to him, but he was always telling him these tall stories about his life that he knew weren't true. It's almost like a Wizard of Oz, basically. If you watch this movie back and
Right.
forth with Wizard of Oz, you're going to see a lot of similarity in the fantastic way the story is told. And he's like, this wasn't your life. These things didn't happen. But as he starts to look at his father's actual life, he starts to see that there was more truth to the stories than he gave his father credit for.
Wow.
And that's and I'm not in the business of giving away spoilers, so I won't say more than that. But when you're getting to the point where you're talking about loss, and you're getting to the point where you're saying you're starting to see somebody from a different perspective than you've always known them, and you realize maybe they didn't have the tools to communicate to you the way they wanted to, that movie hits me that way. And I
Right.
think that it's a movie you should watch it once, at least once, when you still have your parents, and watch it again when you don't have them anymore.
Right.
That's the kind of experience you're going to have.
Yeah. And you mind if I ask, are your parents still with us? Are they still with you?
One of them is.
One of them is.
Mhm.
Is it your mother or your father?
My
Particularly,
mother's still
you
with
don't
us,
mind that?
yes. Mhm.
She's still with you. Um, I mean, I know this is kind of like off subject, but when you lost your father, and God rest his soul, um, how did that affect you, and what what did you felt left with, and how did you learn to cope with that and not let it destroy you?
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you what, this was something that was very difficult to work with, especially when it happened, because I would have a lot of people trying to tell me things to comfort me and I understand that you don't know what to say in this situation. I forgive anybody for saying the wrong thing because there is no right thing. But they would
Right.
say things like, I don't know how to talk about that because I don't really, I'm not really on good terms with my father. Or they would say, I didn't really get along with my father. And I'd be like, okay, I understand that, and I'm sorry for that, but I did get along with my father. I had a great relationship with my father. He was my best friend, and now he's not here anymore. So I that's the conversation I needed to have, and I found it very difficult that a lot of people couldn't have that conversation.
Right.
So you have to go forward and you have to start thinking what, and that led me to start saying to people when they would lose somebody and they would suffer a great loss, I'd say, you miss that person, and you miss that person because there's something that they brought to your life that is no longer there, and you saw a value in that, and you saw a value in what they brought to the world, and you feel that loss, and you're wondering why everybody else doesn't feel that loss. So what you can do is you can say, I'm going to bring this to the world in that person's place. If I'm going to take what they brought and I'm going to try to be that, even if I'm not doing it the same way, just knowing that the world misses that and I can bring it helps you grow as a person. And in a little bit of a way, it can help you move past it.
All right. I only asked, and I know that there's no such thing as a perfect relationship for anybody. You know, I don't think that's ever happened. I just find it that the older I get, the more I realize that I'm probably gonna end up losing, and it's just natural. That's just a part of life. That's how this life is. Um, it's also taught me to be a lot more patient, a lot more understanding, and to remove, to the best of my ability, to remove my ego, my opinion, and uh, my personal opinion about what I think somebody really is out of all of my relationships with people, and to try, especially when it comes to, family members and really, really close friends. Um, because until you are in that person's head, in that person's body, you really don't know what they're thinking, what they're going through, what their thoughts are. So I'm the type of person that I tread very, very carefully in my approach to people, the things that I say to people, and promises that I make to people. Because when you really think about it, your word truly is your bond, and that really is all that you have. And the things that you say to people, the things that you do to people. I tell a lot of people often, I bartend part-time outside of doing acting, and I tell people all the time, people may forget your face, people may forget things that you said, people may forget the things that you've done, but the one thing that people will never forget is the way that you make them feel. You could see somebody that you met and had a conversation with 50 years ago, and if that person put a true genuine smile on your face and hugged you and embraced you in such a way that your heart was just bursting with enthusiasm and excitement and love, you're going to remember that person when you see them 50 years from now. You may forget their name, but you won't forget the way that that person made you feel. Just like if it was the same as the complete opposite, and that person hurt your feelings, or that person betrayed you, stabbed you in the back, or anything. We're creatures of habit, but we're also creatures of remembrance as well. And I think when it comes to dealing with situations that revolves around our mortality and death, I think that's something that I feel like if we all took that into consideration a little bit more, I think that our thoughts would have a lot more to say before we actually speak for ourselves, whether it's through emotion or out of anger or fear even. Um, I think that's really incredible, because I've never heard anybody, Aaron, express that and explain it that way to me before, and it's actually very inspirational and hopeful. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to lose anybody, and I know I don't know you like that, to a T, but I don't want to lose you either. It's just
Thank
it's
you.
crazy to say that, but I don't, and I feel like that's something that really pushes me, and that's why I love the craft of acting. It's funny too, man, because this acting is this art form is so much different than any other medium that's out there. Different than music and stand up. It's just so much so different. And in a lot of ways, it truly has saved and changed my life. It took, I think it's good to have this. So, I know I never had the pleasure and the privilege of meeting your father, but he's proud.
Thank you. Thank you.
should be
That
proud
means
to.
a lot. I'm going to take a step to the side for a minute, but it circles back to the point almost immediately. Do you happen to be a Star Trek fan?
I'm more Star Wars than Star Trek,
That
but I
works.
used to watch it all the time. Yeah,
Okay,
I
well,
used to
I'm
watch it all
sitting
the
here
time.
wearing a Star Trek shirt. So I mean, but you talked about being a bartender and having people talk to you in that moment. And I often point out to people, one of my favorite scenes, it was the first scene in the first episode ever filmed of the series ever. The captain is sitting in his quarters. It wasn't Kirk, it was actually some other guy. And his doctor comes in and he's suffering from what we would now call PTSD. I don't think they had that, but that you can clearly see the symptoms in the conversation. And his doctor comes in and instead of pulling out, a tricorder or a syringe, or he pulls out a martini glass and a shaker. And he sets it in front of him and says, bringing you this because a man will tell his bartender things he won't tell his doctor. And that's when you're in that moment and you have somebody who is, number one, willing to talk to you. And that's something that I'm not saying bartenders have a monopoly on it, but it tends to be part of their stock and trade. Now, you can substitute in a good friend, a counselor, just somebody who happens to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But when you have somebody who actually wants to have that conversation, it takes the weight off your shoulders of knowing when to bring it out. And so we don't really know how to have these talks. We don't know how we're going to be able to affect people. And you have to recognize when somebody's willing to talk to you about something very, very personal, especially something that's bothering them, that's your chance to impact their life. And like you just said, that impact can last 5, 15, 50 years down the road if you get it at just the right time when they have just the right feeling.
Mm-hmm. Every moment is an opportunity to either fix something, to change something, or to start over anew again. And every single passing minute is another opportunity and chance to turn things all the way around completely. That's exactly why I said previously, I'm very, very careful and particular about my approach to people. And it has nothing to do with, fear or inferiority. But I think to come from a place of love and respect towards others, even when people aren't treating you right, is the best way to combat and deal with those types of situations. Trust me, as well as I'm sure being in that industry, it can be cutthroat, it can be very fickle, and you're dealing with, I don't necessarily want to say crazy, but you're just dealing with a barrage of different kind of people. You never know who's going to walk in that bar and sit down at that bar. You don't never know what somebody's intentions are. Just as fast as you get a face that'll smile in front of you, you can get a face that'll turn around and blow your head off. Like, you never know. It's like a it's like a pop-up box. But I had a good friend of mine that asked me, why I did this, and I told her, I said, I love talking to people. I love learning. And when you start to build relationships and network with people, through this is actually how, I was able to make it onto your show, was because of bartending. You just never know. You never know, and not even so much of confessions from the patron to the bartender, but you just never know how they can change your life and how they can get you to think differently, to get to a place emotionally, even spiritually, that you never saw was possible before, didn't even think was even an option to you, didn't even think it was there. And it's amazing. I love it. I love people. I love being on that stage and that platform. I call it my office. you know. Literally, I call it my office, and I love to see people come back on a regular day-to-day basis. Well, but what is crazy too, though, is I love for people to catch a good buzz, and and I can make you anything you want to drink. And 9 times out of 10, depending on what it is, you won't even taste the liquor in it. My drinks are top notch, but I do not like to get people drunk. I do not like to get people shit faced at my bar. Like, I want people to come and have a good time and coast and have a good buzz and fellowship and have fun with people. But I don't like to push people over the edge, and whether it comes from, my aptitude of, getting people to slow down, I just have to cut people off completely. An extra $5, $10 tip or extra shot or whatever. It's not worth somebody's well-being or their livelihood or their life. So it's like it's in a sense, it's like it's an art form. That's how I look at it. But to get back to what you said in the Star Trek reference, that is absolutely true, because I've had some people come up in my bar and tell me some of the craziest craziest stuff. And I'm talking about some of these people, the people that I have known for 8 years and up, and have told me some things about their life or their marriages or their relationships, things that you would never guess in a million years. And it's all good because all that information, all that stays right up here. So it's almost like it's almost like the reverse of being a ghost in the shell, in a sense. It's like, you're a walking vessel that gets people to confess. It's almost like going to church, in a sense. And it's like a confessional. It's weird, but I love it. It's cool. I get to see when people come in and they're stressed out or they got a lot on their mind, but to see them leave and there's a better sense of relief, or I could tell that, that burden has gotten a little bit lighter on them. That lets me know I did my job.
And I'm hearing, no matter what you're talking about, this whole conversation, whether it's bartending, whether it's being an acting class, or whether it's actually being on a stage or a screen, literally nothing you're talking about is about you. It is about your relationships with your customers, your audience, your cast members. You are about the community. You are about the group effort. And I really respect that.
I really appreciate that, Aaron. It took me some time to get to this place, and not really from realization, but just accepting it, and that's really who I am. And I appreciate that, because I've never had anybody say that to me before. That really does mean a lot to me, because I do care about my community. And when people say all the time that don't give a F about what people think about you, like, nah, I think it's reverse. Like, do care about what people think about you. Do take what people think about you into consideration. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you have to believe, what I'm saying, excuse me, what they say about you, but it should be something that you look at and you consider, because the two most important days of anybody's life is the day that you were born, and it's the day that you die. And there's not that many people in that room with you when you're born, but I think what matters most is who's going to show up at that funeral. To me, that's what matters. That's what counts. Like, I could give a damn about how much money or how many accolades that you receive in this world, and how many rewards, or how many men or women you slept with, or how many cars and clothes and houses you bought. It's like, all of that to me is irrelevant. What is your relationship like with your peers, your family, your friends? What is it? What are the things that people say about you? You know what I'm saying? When you're not around. Don't get me wrong. What somebody truly thinks about you on the inside is none of your business. But, trust and believe that when your back is turned, people are talking and people are saying things about you. And to me, that's what's important. The things that are being talked and said about you when you're not around, when your name does come up in a conversation or a subject or whatever, like, because you got to think to yourself, that's how you're going to be remembered. That's what they remember of you. That's what they're thinking. So yeah, I take my relationships with people, and don't get me wrong, Aaron, I'm the farthest thing from perfect, but it's something that I take into consideration every day, and it's something that gives me anxiety out of this world. But I love it and I appreciate it. And I've learned to deal with it and cope with it. I'm not on any kind of medication or anything. I don't, I enjoy some good cocktails from time to time, obviously. But I'm not on any kind of medication for anxiety or depression or anything like that. Like I said, I choose to absorb it and allow myself to feel what I want to feel. But it helps me to keep myself in check and to not get so far gone, and to remind myself to be good to people, and the first step of being good to others is to be good to yourself. So thank you very much for saying that. That truly does mean a lot to me.
Well, after what you just, I don't know if I can top that, and I definitely can't presume to lead it in a better direction. So I'm going to wrap that there. But I'd like to know, where can we follow your adventures and your next step in your career, and possibly your next step in your personal journey? Do you have social media that you follow?
No, not really. I'm not really a big social media fan. I am on Facebook, but after talking to some good friends, I'm definitely going to be building these things back up and getting these platforms back on track. I guess hopefully the next time that I'm able to hop on here and talk to you some more, we can continue this adventure. And oh my God, Aaron, there's so much to that I'd love to talk to you about, from life to movies, and more about yourself, and what you're doing and what your goals are. I'm excited. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to be here to talk to you. It's amazing. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, and it's so cool. It's so cool, and I feel like we're gonna do so many more. But the next project I'm working on is gonna be a television series called Dusk Till Dawn. It's kind of like a supernatural werewolf, vampires, witches. I know production for this is supposed to start towards the end of this month and between the end of this month and the beginning of October. But yeah, I can be followed on Facebook, Instagram. Preferably, I like to do this and be face to face, talk to people. Yeah.
My favorite episodes to make are the ones I can do face to face. I haven't been able to do one of those for a very long time, for obvious reasons. Not going to get into that. But I love those episodes, and I would like to do this. You are welcome back on the show anytime you want. You're a hell of a great guy. I really think you have a lot of perspective, and there are things I want to talk to you about that we just can't get to today.
Absolutely. Aaron, it's been a pleasure, man. I definitely look forward to doing this in the very, very near future. You have a blessed day. You have a great week. You stay healthy. You stay strong out there. And just remember, if you don't hear from anybody else this week, just know I love you. I appreciate
You as well.
man.
Take good care, sir.